Hi everyone, I'm very sorry that I'm ever so slightly late, and now I'm a bit worried that it's not gonna show up. So I'm just gonna hang around talking to myself briefly to see if it works. Oh no! Oh! Wow. I've had many a technical difficulty today, and I feel like one of the issues might be that I have about 1 million tabs open on my computer. So after this, I'm going to shut them. Hey. Okay, it's not going to be in notes, is it? Where do I... Substack, what's going on? Am I live? Am I not live? I'm not live. Why am I not live? Oh dear. Well, this isn't great. Right. How will I fix this? Let's see. It says I am, but that's... Also, sorry if anyone is actually watching this and it is live, because that'd be very boring. I think it's because I'm 3 minutes late. Oh, well, that's sad, isn't it? Right. How will one fix this? Let's see. Stream. Substack. I wonder if I'll have to like... Oh... Oh, did that work? Oh, okay. Well, we're here eventually. Is this working? Scheduled. Oh God, practice live video. I don't want to. Okay, well, I think. Oh, it's already been a stressful time. Right, I think we're good to go, are we? And everyone's probably like, you're so bad with technology, but I swear this is actually... I think I try and overcomplicate it a little bit. And I think my computer's just like, shut the tabs. It's time to accept that you probably need to restart your computer. And that doesn't look like anything's up. Home. Okay, right, guys, found it. Oh, okay, right. This is going to be great, I promise. And it'll be well worth it if you've sat through that very boring period of time. And it turns out I've also learned a lesson that if you are even a minute late, it will just cancel your life. So that's a good incentive for me to never be late, and I will never be late again. Okay, so right, today I'm trying something new as well, because obviously I do that on the day where everything goes wrong. Why not? I'm going to do some slides. I did a little bit of prep here. Now this isn't going to work, is it? Boom, it did work. Okay, so today I'm going to go over basically things that people have sent me this week, like I normally do. The first one was a question about what happens when you drink coffee on an empty stomach. I'm sure many people can guess where that has come from. The second one was a tweet that someone had screenshotted me about hunger being like your friend on a fat loss diet and thoughts around that. And then essentially, like, should you be hungry when you're losing fat? Is it an inevitable thing? How should you be thinking about that? And then foods to reduce cancer risk, which was a silly post by a cancer doctor, which was a little bit surprising. And then another really like inflammatory post about sleep and lack of sleep, and whether it will mean that you store fat even if you're on a perfect diet. So this is the first thing that I'm going to cover. And this was a question that was sent to me, and it says, and it's very hard for me to read, so you could get a close up of my forehead. Coffee on an empty stomach, first thing, is it really bad for you? Will it raise my cortisol levels? Leading to weight gain? Does it cause inflammation? Please help me with the truth on this one. So this I've seen primarily by one very large Instagram account, but then I think a lot of people are kind of piggybacking off the back of that. The short answer is that for most healthy people, having coffee first thing in the morning on an empty stomach will have no negative consequences whatsoever. Can it increase cortisol? Yes, for a short amount of time, but there is no good evidence to say that it increases it to a point that matters at all. And certainly there is no evidence to suggest that it causes weight gain or that it would influence systemic inflammation. So if we kind of break down these claims a little bit further, first one being, will coffee on an empty stomach raise cortisol and make me gain weight? So yes, it will raise cortisol. Caffeine will acutely increase cortisol levels, but that rise is very small and is actually reduced in people who habitually drink coffee. So if you're someone who wakes up every single morning and drinks coffee, then the increase in cortisol that you're getting is less than someone who doesn't normally drink coffee in the morning. So you become, oh my God, why is it suddenly so dark? Oh my God, I'm not having a good old time of it. Let me just see what's happening here. Oh, I'm having a slight. Okay, I think I'm back and I'm okay. If someone can, Emily, you're always good at this. Is there like a delay? Is there an issue, or can you hear me fine? I'll carry on anyway, and hopefully it'll just all work out and I can edit it in the post show notes or whatever. You're fine. Oh, okay, brilliant. Okay, so yes, it's normal for your cortisol to rise in the morning, and yes, caffeine will increase cortisol levels, especially if you're not used to drinking caffeine or you're not used to drinking coffee in the morning. But cortisol is meant to rise in the morning. That's completely normal, and the effect of caffeine on cortisol levels is minimal in comparison to your natural morning rise in cortisol. So does it have a big impact? Would I be worried about it? No. I can see that there's like a theory behind that, because you're like, well, if cortisol levels are already high and then I have some caffeine and that's going to increase it even more, surely that's a bad thing. Not necessarily, because it's an acute thing and the effect of that is relatively small. It certainly won't cause any weight gain for you. That is going to be completely down to energy balance over time. And then interestingly, almost to counter this, there are some large studies, so like cohort type studies, where they essentially ask people questionnaires that link regular coffee consumption to actually lower long-term weight gain, so people are able to maintain a healthy weight, and a reduced risk of type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. And this is likely to do with some of the ingredients in the coffee. And again, this isn't causation, it's just correlation. But it's a kind of sign of like, actually, if anything, we probably have evidence for there being a habitually good thing of like drinking coffee regularly. Now, the only thing I would say about the weight gain side of things is if you do drink a ton of coffee and it has a lot of calories in it, right? So if you're drinking like numerous lattes a day, or you drink coffee later on in the day and then that impacts your sleep and then that impacts your cravings and then you're more likely to overeat the next day, then yes, like you absolutely could find that there's a link between you consuming coffee, especially if there's lots of calories in it and there's lots of liquid calories and that not being particularly satiating and potentially impacting your sleep, which would both mean that you'd be potentially consuming more calories, but it's not the coffee itself that's inherently fattening. And equally, you'll get, some of the same people often being like, caffeine's a fat burner, which again is like technically true, but the extent to which you're going to burn fat because you've consumed more caffeine is minimal. And actually, coffee can also be a appetite suppressant. So most people find that if they consume coffee, especially black coffee, then they will have a suppression of appetite after consuming coffee. So you could argue that you might actually end up eating less calories. But anyway, besides the point, it's all going to come back to energy balance. So you kind of have to think about how is drinking this coffee impacting my subsequent behaviors around food and thus how much food I'm consuming, as opposed to anything else. But certainly what's not happening is coffee increasing cortisol and cortisol making you gain weight. That's not what's happening, so I wouldn't be worried about that. The second part of this question was, does coffee cause inflammation? No. In fact, coffee is rich in polyphenols, which actually reduce inflammation. And again, when you look at big studies, so there was a meta-analysis that shows that people who consume coffee on a regular basis, there's an association between this and a lower inflammatory response, lower inflammatory markers in the blood like CRP, and lower risk of cardiometabolic diseases. And again, I want to be clear because I don't like to be inflammatory with my statements, which is funny when you're talking about inflammation. This is correlation, not causation. So I'm certainly not saying like drinking coffee will directly reduce your inflammation, but there is a correlation here. So it's very unlikely that there's a pro-inflammatory effect when actually what we see when we look at data is there's a reduction in inflammation. So I wouldn't be worried about any of those things. Now, on a very practical level, if you feel fine drinking coffee and it suits you and you do it first thing in the morning and it works for you and you feel good doing it, then there's no reason that you shouldn't consume it. If you have negative outcomes, i.e. you get quite like jittery or you have reflux or GI discomfort, then I wouldn't do that. Or if you just feel better not having caffeine until later in the day, or you feel better having a cup of tea instead of coffee, like it really doesn't matter that much. I'd go far more off how you feel, but I certainly wouldn't be afraid that coffee in the morning first thing is going to make you gain weight or is going to cause the inflammation or is going to spike your cortisol and then cause negative consequences of that. So the short version is no, coffee on an empty stomach isn't inherently bad for you. It won't meaningfully raise your cortisol levels in a way that drives fat gain. I don't really know where some of these claims are coming from. But if it doesn't suit you, then change that habit. And if you think it might not be benefiting you, then maybe I would take it out for a period of time and see if you feel any better. Okay. Next one was this, which somebody sent me, which is a reel of a doctor who is talking about the link between certain food and cancer. And this is like a massive pet hate of mine. And it's really worrying to see it from a doctor because obviously there's going to be some element of trust there, or at least you should be able to trust a doctor. But when there's titles like foods that I would never eat as a cancer doctor, like it's literally just clickbait. And it's so like disappointing to see that people will put not just people's health, but also like their mental health and they're staying up at night worrying what they should be eating or not be eating they'll literally just say things like that to get following or to get like when you really zoom out and you think the only reason, unless you are completely shit doctor, the only reason you've done this is to get clicks, is to draw attention to your page, is to probably try and sell somebody something. And you know that you're actively damaging their health and their mental health, and they're worried that they're, if you're someone who's got cancer or has had cancer, you're already terrified of what you should be doing or shouldn't be doing. And then to be like piling on this misinformation on top of it is like absolutely fucking criminal. And then ton of like fear mongering around this. So I'm not surprised that people feel even more anxious than they already do. A lot of the comments, I've read some of the comments on this, were really sadly from women in exactly that position of like, I'm so confused. I have been adding chai seeds to my breakfast because I thought it was healthy. Someone else has put, I bought your book and it has a chai seed recipe in it. Now I'm really confused. Like even this person is completely contradicting them. And even some of this list like foods that contain soy has actually been has been linked to a reduction in risk of certain forms of cancer and in the recurrence of certain forms of cancer. So it's all just stupid fear mongering. There's no one food that is going to massively increase your risk. Maybe slightly processed meat, but again, like even then, that's kind of been overhyped. I would suggest avoiding it because it's kind of a little bit gross in my opinion anyway. But yeah, a lot of this is overhyped. Like if you enjoy a Diet Coke every now and again, and that means that actually, let's say that you consume less calories and that helps you stay lean, then I would argue that, as a byproduct of helping you stay lean, then the Diet Coke has probably reduced your risk of cancer. And the things that actually matter most for your risk of cancer are things like achieving and maintaining a healthy body weight, because being overweight or obese is a big risk factor for certain forms of cancer, especially some of the most common ones like breast cancer, is to eat plenty of fruit and veg and fiber, is to limit or, to be honest, exclude alcohol, because alcohol is a carcinogenic. Same with processed meat, like limit it or completely exclude it. If it's, if it doesn't mean much to you anyway, I just not consume it. Stay active, exercise consistently, resistance train, don't smoke, wear SPF, like the stuff that actually works to reduce risk of cancer. This kind of information is just fear mongering and just adds a ton of anxiety to people that are already struggling with something. So ignore things like this, but it is quite hard when it's coming from a doctor, which again is just absolutely terrifying to me. And knowing that either that doctor has consciously said, do you know, I don't care that I'm fear mongering and adding a ton of anxiety to my patients. I actually care more about my Instagram views than I do about people. Or like, I don't really know, maybe they just didn't even think about it. Who knows? But it's just like, this is the world that we're living in now. It's pretty messed up. Right, next one. Okay, this was a tweet that I was sent, and what's it? And it's actually too small for me to read. Great. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can get it up. A sign of fat loss is going hungry. Instead of complaining about it, be friends with it. And then someone said, I would love your thoughts on this. So I think this is quite a good discussion point generally, because this is a message that for some people could actually be quite useful and for other people could be really, really damaging. And I think that's true for a lot of information online. Often a piece of advice is exactly what one group of people should be hearing, but would be an awful piece of advice for another group of people. And unfortunately, you can't really choose who that information goes to. And I would argue that more often than not, the wrong people get the information because they're trying to validate their own behaviors at that time. And I'll come on to this, but in this example, it's probably going to worsen someone who's struggling with maybe disordered eating tendencies or an eating disorder, that this is like a really bad message. But for someone who's trying to lose fat, accepting that like being a bit hungry from time to time is a pretty normal thing. And I think that maybe we've gone too far in like demonizing all uncomfortable feelings and kind of trying to avoid all of them. Like, some hunger is completely normal when you're dieting, and honestly, even when you're not dieting, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, it is quite normal to be hungry from time to time. It's also really normal to be sad from time to time. It's also really normal to be bored or anxious at periods of time. And they're not feelings that we should like always be trying to avoid. It's just a part of life. So I think sometimes the issue with social media more broadly, and coming back to like this falling on like the wrong audience, is that you're often looking for things and then the algorithm starts to support you looking for things that support your own biases. So as an example, and I'll use myself as an example, like the person who potentially works too much and who might do with, I don't know, taking a little bit of time off, is probably far more likely to look for messages that support maybe their bias of working hard, right? So like hustle culture type content of like, yeah, work hard, dig in now, or like no days off, or, you know, that kind of stuff. In comparison to like, I don't know, other messaging that might be like, rest is as important as working hard, and sometimes taking time off is the best thing you can do to be more productive, and blah blah blah. But yeah, if you're always liking the hustle culture type stuff, you're going to get shown more and more and more of that, right? Much like the dieter who is struggling with hunger is likely to be drawn more to content that's like, always listen to your hunger. You should always honor your hunger, because actually that's probably what they want to hear, but it's not what's going to get them results. So again, like your algorithms are often pushing you in the wrong direction, which I think is one of the big problems with social media. But in regards to this specific quote, I don't know that I would go so far as to suggest, quote unquote, being friends with hunger, but I would recommend accepting it and recognizing it and leaning into it a little bit and like learning how to sit with it when it's needed. You know, if you're like, okay, I've stuck to my calories today, I've fueled myself well, you know, I've hit my targets, but I am a little bit hungry sitting in the evening, like that's okay. You know, what I'm not saying is be completely starving all the time to the point that all you can think about is food. That's a very different level of hunger. But I do think that a little bit of hunger is pretty common. And side note to this, if you are someone who is dieting on sensible calories, but you're still struggling with hunger, it's often due to what you're eating, not just how much you're eating. And if you need any help with that, then after this, go over to my Instagram at ESG Fitness, message me the word hunger, and I will send you my full ultimate guide to hunger. And it's basically an evidence-based guide of the things we know that you can eat that will make you most satiated. So it's not, you know, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, eat more protein. It's not really so much about that. Yes, that's one of, I think, 9 evidence-based things, including things like eating slower, including food volume, including the texture of certain foods, including the palatability of certain foods. Like, there are many aspects to go through. So if you do want that, shoot me a message afterwards. It is the evidence-based guide to reducing your hunger. Okay, the next thing I was sent this week was this on sleep and fat loss, which says, without enough sleep, your body converts food into fat even on a perfect diet, which I think is really fucking unhelpful, you know, because a lot of people struggle with sleep. Most people I know that struggle with sleep aren't just like, ha ha ha, I'm just not going to sleep that much. They're like, I'm struggling to sleep because I have really bad anxiety, or I'm struggling to sleep because my kids won't sleep, or I've got hot flushes, or I keep waking up in the night and I'm trying to get to bed and I'm doing all the right things. And then reading something like this that's like, hey, no matter how hard you try, if you're not sleeping, your body's just going to turn into fat, even if you have a great diet. Like, that's not true at all. And headlines like this make you feel like there's no hope, which often leads into a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy of, why on earth would I try if I've just been told that because I'm not sleeping, I'm not going to get the outcome that I want anyway? That's really demotivating. So your body doesn't convert food into fat, even on the perfect diet, just because you've slept less. Energy balance still holds true. There is a relationship between sleep and fat loss. But if calories are matched, sleep loss doesn't just magically make you store fat. Like, if you just think about it logically, like, how would that even happen? Where are those calories coming from? It's not a possibility. Now, they didn't actually quote this study, but I'm willing to bet they're referring to a certain study, because a lot of claims like this refer all to the same study, which is interesting. This happens quite a lot with claims, and then you look back and they're all just using like one study, which is in this case like a really small study that's often just misquoted. So this study looked at, I can't remember exactly how many people. I know it was quite a small sample size, but they had, and one of the reasons it was a small sample size, to give credit, is that when you're doing a sleep study and you need to have a lot of control over that, it's very time expensive. It's very like equipment expensive. You're normally having people stay in the lab in order to monitor these things. So they're very hard studies to run. But it was 14 days. Everyone was in a 10% calorie deficit. And the main difference was one group was sleeping for 5.5 hours and the other group was sleeping for 8.5 hours. And the total weight loss between the groups was similar because they're both in a 10% deficit, right? So total weight loss similar, that seems to make sense. Note here, one group didn't magically, start storing fat that they hadn't consumed. But the group who only slept for 5.5 hours, they lost less fat and they lost more lean muscle mass. So this indicates that sleep can have an impact on body composition changes within weight loss. But it's not that like food automatically turns to fat. There's just a slight change in the body composition. So it's like, for sure, it's important to get enough sleep. Now, the bigger impact of sleep is on your behavior and on your appetite and on your hunger levels. So lack of sleep can increase hunger signals, hunger hormones, and reduce satiety. This obviously makes you more likely to eat more. And you're also probably more likely to go for comfort type foods or ultra processed foods or higher calorie foods. And, just on a more observational level, like, I know whenever I've not slept well, I definitely have lower willpower. I'm less likely to go to the gym that day. I'm less likely to want to go out for a walk. I'm less likely to want to, prep a nice salad instead of just going for something that's easy and is there and is more comforting and probably consumes more calories, right? You know this in your own behavior. And actually, some studies show that even an hour's extra sleep can have a big impact on just like your habitual calorie consumption. So one study that looked at this showed that people who slept for an extra hour ate, on average, 250 to 300 calories less. So this was a group of people who were struggling with sleep. So I'm not saying if you're already getting 8 hours sleep, don't just be like, well, I'll have 9 hours sleep and then I'll magically eat less. This was people who were struggling with sleep. They went through a process that coached them to increase their sleep by, on average, the increase in sleep time was about an hour. And then they ended up eating 250 to 300 calories less because of that. And this is more of a sign of like a reduction in appetite, much easier to stick to your diet, much easier to feel satiated after eating. But this headline is completely wrong. Like, this post is just clickbait. It's not that people are sticking to a perfect diet and then magically storing fat because they've not slept. That is not something that you need to worry about. And also is the last thing that you need to worry about if you're already struggling to sleep and then now you're lying awake at night thinking, oh God, and because I'm awake at night, I'm not going to be able to lose fat, or worse, I'm going to be putting on fat because I'm not sleeping, which in turn will make you sleep even less. I hope these have been useful. If anyone has any questions, ask now or forever hold your peace, or just send me your topics for next week. Also, coffee consumption makes other people live longer because then I'm a less dangerous person. Yeah. Although I will say I cut out caffeine for various reasons for a period of time, and honestly, it made absolutely no difference. I think it's because I still drink coffee. I just drink decaf coffee. And I actually had a caffeinated coffee today, and I didn't really notice any difference. Um, we'll see. I'll be like awake all night. Like, no, it didn't even have any difference at all. Oh, but yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk about was this post I did last night, and it was about having a life that is like a 6 out of 10 and how that's much harder to make changes from a point of 6 out of 10 because things aren't like that bad. And what normally happens is people wait until they get to like a 2 out of 10 or until things are really bad in order to change. And we're often told like from society to kind of be happy with like 6 out of 10, like things aren't bad, you should be happy with your fine partner and your fine job and like just being okay with things. And I think one thing I want to get across is like I'm so big on gratitude. Like I absolutely think you should be grateful for your, you know, nice partner or your nice job. And it's okay to be grateful, but then like strive for more or want more. You might be like, you know, I'm fine with my body composition at the moment, but I'd quite like to build a bit more muscle. Like that's a nice place to be, you know, but I still think like something that's going to drive you to push yourself a little bit more. And if you are someone who's like, I don't really want to live my life at a 6 out of 10. I want to be like an 8 to 10 out of 10. Like I want to live my life, I want to push myself. And I don't want to just settle for like average or settle for fine. Then I have something for you, which is the Fuck Average Club, which essentially does that. Like, don't settle for average, don't settle for fine, push yourself a little bit more. If you want more out of life, like this is for you. And this is something that I'm going to do for the next Commit 6 intake because we're starting the next Commit 6 intake on the 1st of December. And that's when most people settle down for Christmas and start to kind of slowly ease off, not push themselves too hard, gain a little bit of weight. And that kind of flows up until like New Year. And then they try and start something in New Year. But by that point, you kind of feel a bit lethargic, you're out of shape, you're not feeling good about yourself. Generally, most people think that you're going to be really motivated come January. But if you've let yourself kind of go in December, then usually you end up start of January feeling really unmotivated, which is why I'm so passionate about doing this now. And also knowing that I'll attract the exact people that I like to work with, which are people that are like, fuck being average. I don't want to be average. I want to push myself. I want more from my life. And I don't just mean that in terms of diet and exercise. I mean that in like all areas of life. So if you do want to make sure that you're starting 2026 feeling incredible and you're the kind of person who's like, I'm not going to accept fine or average or 6 out of 10. I want to see what more feels like, and I only have one life and I want to push myself and I want to experience that. Then surrounding yourself with a group of people that are also doing the same is one of the best things that you could be doing. So if you don't want to put things what I can achieve for the rest of this year, and I know that there are already people being like, yeah, my 2026 goals are XYZ. It's like, no. What are your 2025 goals? We've still got time. We can still be improving. You'll be amazed at what you can achieve by the end of this year, let alone what you can achieve next year. Then you can head to esgfitness.co.uk/commit for the full details. Or if you want to make sure that you get an early bird space, message me on Instagram and I will send you the link directly because the early bird link is not live yet. Emily's just saying, yes, come and join us. December starts are the best. I honestly think they attract the absolute best people. And the people who start in December usually get the best results because you've got into a mindset of, I'm not going to put this off until next year. I'm going to start now. And that's usually when you get the most results. So thank you for your attention today. If you have enjoyed Science versus Bullshit today, please give this a share. I'm sorry about the technical issues at the start. If you know anyone who you think might benefit from watching this or would just be interested, please do send them this, get them to subscribe. And if anyone does have any topics or questions they want me to cover, send them to me on Instagram is usually the best place. And I just collate them every week, do a bit of research, pull out a bit of data on things or evidence behind things and discuss them. And yeah, that's all. Have awesome evenings. And let's see if I can work out how to end this smoothly. Probably not. Here we go.